Okay, we're going live now. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone who's here. Hello, everybody. Just waiting for a couple of people to join on. If you're live, please leave me a comment. Let me know where you're joining from. Let me know where you're watching from. Say hello so I can see that people have started coming through. Hello, everybody. Okay, I see the comments coming in. Eugene from Manitoba, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Hello from Saskatoon. Welcome, welcome. Osase, welcome. Good to have you here. If you're here, please leave a comment just so I know. We're just going to give a minute or two for other people to join in, and then we will get the party started. Tammy from Lagos, I see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. Chidima, welcome. You're here. I see you. Welcome. Hi Tracy, welcome. Okay, so I see some people coming through already. Great to have you all here. Thank you very much. I feel like it's been a while since I had a live video and I'm feeling a bit rusty. So you guys be nice, okay? Hi Monica, thank you very much for joining. Thank you. Happy to have you all here. Watching from Sudbury, Ontario. Faith, welcome. Thank you very much for joining. You guys, we have a loaded conversation today, and I don't know if we have enough time to come close to covering like the scope that this conversation can take, but it is a much needed conversation. And I thought it would be nice to have like a panel of people who have more experience, more expertise in this than I do, to come together to have this conversation and educate our community so that we're all making good choices and we're all making decisions that will not have any detrimental effects down the line. Thank you. I see you all coming through. Thank you very much. Innocent from Lagos, thank you very much for joining. Okay, so to get the party started, I'm going to turn it over to the panel. As you guys can see, I'm not alone. I have a panel of experts who are going to help us to dissect this conversation today. So I'm going to turn it over to my panel to do a brief introduction of themselves before we get into the conversation proper. I know they say ladies first, but this time I'm flipping it. I'm starting with the only gentleman in our midst. He's going to go first. Blessed are you among many divas. So, Courage, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Marina, and thanks to everyone that's watching from everywhere. It's nice to have everybody here. And Marina, thanks for doing this. This is amazing. Really appreciate this. So my name is Courage Amujede. I live here in Saskatoon, in Canada. I've been in Canada for about 7 years now. Um, our subject today is estate planning and life insurance. So I will tell you about my world in that area. I started into the financial world back in 2006 when I started out in the popular Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers in Nigeria. I was studying to become a stockbroker. While I was doing that, I was working with my cousin. We had a little firm where we help clients to invest, kind of things. So when we moved to Canada, I got my license as a licensed insurance professional. So I'm specialized in insurance as well. And I also got my mutual funds license. So I do investments, I build portfolios, and do all that for clients. I build financial game plans for clients as well. So I'm here with my wife and two kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Courage. Thanks a lot. Charmaine, I'll let you go next.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. I'm so excited to learn from everybody, excited to hear the questions from the people who are joining us. I'm Charmaine Pinko. I am a lawyer based out of Saskatoon. I'm actually joining you today from Maple Creek, Saskatchewan, though. I'm from the southwest corner of this province. It's super hot here today, and grateful for being in a nice, cool indoor space. My practice as a lawyer focuses on helping families who are sometimes going through very difficult experiences, whether that's connected to separation and divorce, or they are dealing with estate matters. And as part of that, we really try to support families in being proactive so that when those life changes arise, that they have already put their mind to some of those really important things. And today's topic being on that estate planning piece, so connected to putting your will in place, your power of attorney documents, your healthcare directive, all of those things that we will be talking about today. A couple of unique facts about me is I'm a mom of 11, so I have 6 boys and 5 girls, and I work
Wow.
with
I
number
didn't
of
know that.
women.
That's interesting, Charmaine.
I'm also a grandma to 5. So
Wow.
so family is a really, really big deal to me, and wanting to support people that have families and are making these important decisions. So excited to be able to engage in today's conversation. Thank you, Marina.
That is amazing, Charmaine. I feel like I just learned something about you, and we're just what, 6
There you
minutes
go.
in. Okay, last but definitely not least, Flora, please take the floor.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Marina, for having me. My name is Fumilola Ayotunde, and I'm a lawyer here in Saskatoon and also an assistant professor at the College of Law. So I taught Wills Law twice for the past 2 years at the college, but going forward, I'll be teaching other courses. Um, Before I joined the faculty fully, I was a lawyer with the Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission. So aside from teaching, my research is really about human rights, public international law, and environmental rights. So because I practiced a little bit in Nigeria, I was called to the bar in Nigeria, and I've also been called to the bar here for a while now in Saskatchewan. And I was kind of struck by some of the differences in our practice. The richness of Nigerian legal education is that we get taught common law, and at the same time we get to learn customary law, so we don't dispose of that part of us, the traditional, the cultural part of us. And I noticed that it is quite mute in this part of Canada, which is an exciting conversation going forward, and I look forward to this conversation. Thanks, Marina.
Okay, thank you very much. You guys, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see the blend of the expertise that's in this panel? If you have questions, write them down, begin to put them in the chat, because I don't know if we're going to get this kind of super squad anytime soon again. So we're taking advantage of all the expertise that's in front of us right now. Okay, so going straight into the questions, because there's so many things I want to ask from a personal perspective and from the things that I've heard other people talk about, the things that people have asked me. There's so many questions, and we're just going to jump right into it. Guys, if you're liking this video so far, please hit the like button. It helps the algorithm so that more people will see it and more people will be able to join. So click the like button just so we can spread the visibility of this, okay? First question, and I'm going to turn this to Courage. Newcomer to Canada from whatever country they're coming from. For some of us, it was when we first got into Canada that we started to hear things about planning for life, estate planning, planning for children's education. It was not a future thing, like talking about children's education, because in Nigeria, where I come from, you pay school fees as you go. But here, if you're going to like a public or a Catholic school, you don't pay school fees. It's university education or post-secondary education that people pay for. So it's when we come here, we start to hear those things for the first time, like estate planning, life insurance, RRSP, RESP. Where exactly can I start from as a newcomer? I'm fresh in Canada. When should newcomers start to tackle this conversation, and where would be a good place for them to start?
Thank you so much, Marina. This is a great question. I'll answer this by telling you guys a funny story that happened to me. So when I got to Canada the first time, we went to the bank to open bank accounts and things like that. And then the financial advisor we met there looked at our profile and he said, okay, I see your age, you have kids and all that. And then he looked at me and said, excuse me, sir, do you have a will? Man, the Nigeria in me came out. I was like,
Blood of Jesus, blood of
what is
Jesus.
wrong with this? What is wrong with this guy? I was really mad. I was like, why is this guy talking to me about a will? Because where I'm coming from, when you're about to die, that is where you start talking about your will.
Absolutely.
So it was strange. I was really mad. I didn't want that conversation. But fast forward to today, it's a different thing. I have my will in place. Now, what changed? What happened? As a newcomer to Canada, you want information. You want to sit with the appropriate professionals, right? You want to sit down and get educated and say, how are these things? What works here? What is this? What is RESP? What is life insurance? What is estate planning? You want to talk to the right person. So I would say, if you're a newcomer, the first thing you want to do is engage the right professional and get educated.
Okay, engage the right professional, get educated. Guys, are you people writing down? If you have questions, if there are already things you know about this conversation and you want clarity on, you can start to leave the comments or your questions in the comment section and we'll take them as we go. Charmaine, I'm going to come to you next. So Courage had talked about that funny story. I can bet that is the reality of, if not 90% or more of us, when people start to talk about wills. Like, there are marriages that have broken down because the woman dared to ask the husband, let's go and write a will. And the conversation was, are you trying to kill me? And it led to the breakdown of that marriage. I'm not even joking. It's a serious, it's a real life situation. We don't talk about wills where we come from. What exactly is the importance of a will? Like, what's going to happen if somebody dies interstate, like without a will? What's the big deal about having a will?
Mm-hmm. So when somebody here in Saskatchewan, and I know some of you are joining us from other places, so I just want to make sure just to point out that as far as the legal framework of this, it is specific to each province. So Marina, you spoke to what was like, or I can't remember who spoke to you in terms of in Nigeria, you might learn common law and customary law. And so here in each province, the legislation is specific. So just keep in mind, it's always important to get independent legal advice. But in general, here in Saskatchewan, if you were to die without a will, there's a piece of legislation that is then going to be how it's going to govern whatever you have in your bank account, where that's going to go. If you own property, what the value of that property, how that's going to be distributed. And there are all sorts of like myths out there. You know, people think things, they've heard something. So I want to dispel one myth that I've heard, and that is that people think, oh, the government gets everything. Well, that's not true. That is not true. If you die without a will, the government doesn't get everything. But what is true, though, is that your wishes of what you want to have happen with the things you have acquired during your lifetime, that isn't going to matter anymore. It is going to be based on what the legislation says and who gets what down your family lineage. And when you think about some of the things that might be important to you, like, for example, leaving a gift, a charitable donation to perhaps your church or to a nonprofit organization that you want to support. Of course, also providing for your family and providing for your family in the way that you envision it. And nobody can actually do anything with your bank accounts or your property until somebody has applied to the court to become the administrator of your estate. So if you've written a will, you will name somebody an executor. That person is the person who then is able to go to the bank after they've received a piece of paper from the court. It's called letters probate. They can go to the bank. They can put the house up for sale. They can make sure that the children's university tuition is paid, whatever needs to be done. But if you die without a will, there isn't anybody who has that authorization that you've left them. So somebody else else. And it might not even be somebody that if you were still alive that you would pick. It might not be somebody that you would trust. And they will make an application to the court to be given that power. Now, there are different ways in which the court would decide who was the right person if there was more than one person. And that the law has some real common sense around that. They're not going, if you've left a wife behind, they're not going to give the power to your neighbor, probably over your wife. So there's some common sense there. But the message you need to remember is that the people you care about, the people you are providing for right now, if you die without a will, there isn't a roadmap put in place for them. And instead, that's going to be put on top of them based on what the legislation says.
So basically, that the decision for your end of life wishes is going to basically depend on a stranger, like a total stranger can come in and administer your life's wishes, and chances are it might not be exactly the way you want it to, which is why the responsibility is on us while we're here to put those wishes in writing to make sure that that roadmap is created and very clear for the people that you're leaving behind. Thank you very much, Charmaine. Fumilola, I'm going to come to you now. So while Charmaine was speaking, she talked about picking an executor, people who you list as like guardians who will take care of your children if you have children who are under the age of 18. Do you want to speak about that just a bit? Like who qualifies to be an executor? Like what should I consider in determining who my executor should be?
Okay, that's a very brilliant question because even in this part of the world, generally people usually don't pay attention to who they pick as the executor. And I usually say that whoever you're naming as your executor in your will should not find out that they've been appointed as executors after you're dead. There's no surprise here. Knowing what I know about the duties and responsibilities of an executor, it's not a tax I would likely take on, right? So some of the things that people should bear in mind is that you can pick a minor to be your executor, but the person can act as an executor until they attain the age of majority. So if you feel that okay, this person is 15, but this person will still be around, I'm still going to be around for at least 3 years. Fine. It is not advisable. It's a gamble. So you have to be careful. So if you die before the person attains the age of majority, then the court, by an application, after an application, can appoint someone to act as an executor before that person attains the age of majority. And I usually say that there are so many people you can choose from: your spouse, your adult children, family members. But there are so many things you should consider. And I wanted to say this at the beginning. I forgot. Anything I'm saying here, you need to talk to your lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice. And now I'm just speaking generally. And nothing I'm saying reflects on I'm not saying anything from my employer, just me talking right now. But at the same time, you need to talk to your lawyer, ask questions. And there are so many considerations. How big is your estate? Some of us kind of underestimate our estate, and I've seen people do this because you are kind of fixated on your student loan or your credit card debt, and you've forgotten that every time you work, most of the time they deduct money, called pension. You're kind of accumulating that. You have a property, and that is increasing, equity is piling up every time. So sometimes we are richer than we think. So you want someone that understands your estate, that can manage the volume of your estate, be real to yourself, be true to yourself. So some of the things you should consider is the person willing to take on the role? The person has to be younger than you and healthy. Let's just say if the person is going to die before you, then why do you want to pick that person? Then sometimes we think about the number of executors. If you pick more than one person, the general rule is that those people must act in anonymously. That means they have to agree for any decision that is going to be taken. So if you have an uncle and your son that don't agree, and you pick those two people, then there might be a lot of drama at the end of the day by the time you're gone. So you want to pick people that kind of agree. Then there are some companies that do this. We usually say if you feel your estate is big enough, especially for multi-jurisdictional properties, then you want someone, sometimes all these estates companies, to handle your estate when you're done. And I should quickly mention that being an executor comes with a lot of power. This is a person that is going to determine how you will be buried. In fact, you don't have a power over your own body when you die. I can talk to this if there's still time later on. So that person has a lot of power. That person can dispose of your property, can in some situations can sell your real property, your real estate property, and use it to pay off debt. So you want someone that is level-headed, capable, competent, and has the skills to do the duties or to perform the duties. The list goes on and on. You should talk to your lawyer on this.
Wow. Thank you very much. And you touched on something I was going to bring up later. Because this conversation, we're mainly looking at it from an immigrant standpoint. It means we're looking at people who originally moved from somewhere to Canada. So there's a possibility that we're dealing with two different jurisdictions. Like this person has property in their home country and has property here in Canada. How is that going to be administered? But we're going to come back to that in a bit. I'm going to come back to you, Courage. So you've given us the basics, like talk to the professional, talk to the financial advisor. Now that is done, the financial advisor has put all of the options in front of us, and the common ones that we typically hear as newcomers would be RESP, which is like registered savings for future education for the children. There's RRSP, which is like saving towards retirement. Can you speak a bit about that? Because for newcomers, one of the major things that we hear from feedback is, I'm trying to find a job, we're trying to settle in. If I don't have a job, it means I'm eating into my savings that I brought. From a cost perspective, what is reasonable? Like from where a person can start from. Let's now say, I'm trying to think about the best way to put this, because cost is a factor where people say, oh, I'm trying to survive today. Is this the best time for me to start to talk about the future? Like what advice would you give somebody like that? If I were a newcomer and I came to you, you have now given me all of these options. What would you advise me to start with? Where can I start from?
Okay, that's a very great question, Marina. It's I just hope that people are getting this message and they understand where we are coming from. In a place like Canada, you move. Let's say you move from Nigeria, you just land in Canada. You need to understand that the culture is different and things work differently here. In Canada, getting a home, for instance, it's a little bit different from Nigeria, where we own our home outrightly, right? So you pay for your home, you can even pay for it gradually, and then you own it outright. But here, over 90% of people have a mortgage, so you are paying gradually, right? So a good place to start, which is where experts have stated that this is the best way to go, is to have a protection for your income. Protect your income is the foundation. You need to protect your income, which is the foundation of building your financial house. It's a financial house. I'll tell you how that works. A couple get a job, they are making money. Say they earn like $5,000 a month. Out of that $5,000, they pay their rent or their mortgage, they pay for their kids' education and all that. But they are not where they are planning to go. So what happens if along the way, while you are doing all these jobs, and something happens to one of the partner? What happens, right? What happens to the income that person was bringing in? So the first thing to do is to protect your income, which is why we emphasize that you get life insurance. It's not a very interesting topic to talk about. Most people don't like hearing it, but it is the basis of building your financial well-being. In a place like North America, Canada, you need to get income protection. So if somebody's bringing in this income and the person is no more, life insurance replaces that income. It begins to supply and replicates what that income used to do. So somebody is crying that they've lost a loved one, but at least there's that financial well-being, right? So the first place to start is protect your income. Protect your income. After you do that, I'll say to a newcomer, get into the spirit of writing a budget. I know Lola said something now that we are richer than we think. That's true, because if you get a budget, you find out that you are spending money on unnecessary things.
True.
You begin to see it in clear parts, the things that you need to withhold from and the things that you need to spend monies on. So when you start getting into the habit of making a budget, you will save more and you will live better.
Sure.
Again, live less than what you make. Live less than what you make, not more than what you make. Live less. So for instance, I'll give another example about that. If they say you are pre-qualified for a mortgage of 600,000, how about you buying a home of 400,000? It puts you in a better spot because this is where you're supposed to be. But now you come lower, then you have some leeway, you have some free money. So I would say start from that, get a budget, right? Get your will, in place. We cannot overemphasize that, right? Get your will in place. Think about using the RESP for your kids' education. You want to start saving for them. Those CBB they are getting, the child tax benefit. I'll say this, my wife is here, she's watching as well. When we first came to Canada, we found out that they were going to be paying us money for our kids. And we were like, oh my goodness. The Nigerian in me came out again. I told my wife, I said, this is fantastic.
Free money.
Start using this money to pay our rent and do. My spouse was like, hey, Courage, just hold it right there. This money is for the kids. We have to use this money to save for them. I can tell you, we've been here for about 7 years. When I open my kids' RESP, I am amazed what we have in there, right? So these are things I would advise a newcomer to start. First of all, get an education, get income protection, because something can happen. If it happens along the way, what happens to your family? What happens to your dreams? Because you've not saved up 500,000, you've not saved up 600,000 yet. You are working towards there. I'll say start from there.
Okay, that's great. Child tax benefits, great place to start. Like for those of you who are already getting that or about to start getting that, that's where you want to start putting money away. That's a good place to start. I understand that expenses right now are over the roof. Rent is expensive, groceries expensive, or inflation is high. But that money is not money that you technically it's not money that you were expecting. And that's always the best way to do it. If the government is paying you $1,000 for your 4 children or your 5 children, if you cannot save the $1,000 realistically, at least be able to put away 50%, 60% into RESP for the children. Start from somewhere. The first RESP voluntary contribution that I did for my children, because when I came, for like the first year, I didn't have a job. For like the first 4 months, I didn't have a job. And then 9 months following that, I was in school. So technically, for like a year, I wasn't earning any income. I was putting away, I think it was $25 or $25 a month for each of my children. So that was like $50. That money has grown. At that time, $25 was not a big deal. It was manageable. I could handle that. As small as it was, it little drops. It grew. It has grown over the years. I've been able to increase that significantly, but I started from somewhere. I once started from $25. So let's not wait until you're able to, don't wait until you're able to put away $1,000 a month. Start with the extra $20 now. Start with the extra $25. Put that away for the future. Thank you very much, Courage. Charmaine, a question came in the chat and I wanted to turn that question to you. So somebody said, can you pick a sibling who lives in a different country to act as your executor? Can you speak to that, please?
The short answer is yes. The more nuanced answer is, will they be the best choice? When you think about some of the things that need to be attended to, perhaps listing your home for sale or going to look after details at the bank. If they are in a different country, that will make it more difficult for them to, they might choose to fly here, but then there are those expenses. And it may be that it's, you may have somebody here that could be a joint executor with your sibling back home or in a different country, because as Lola said, they will have to make the decisions together, but there may be a reason why it would be important to you to include them in those decisions. And there's a special phrase that we use. It's called joint and several. And what that means is you can have more than one person as the executor and there to agree on things, but only one person needs to do the actual signing, or you only need one person person to actually attend at the bank, for example. So it's not that you couldn't do it, but it would be important to get advice as to whether it would be the most efficient person to name as your executor.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that answers the question for the person who asked it. Lola, there's another question that has come in the chat, and I think it'd be great if you can touch on this one. The person says, how do you ensure that an executor carries out your wish as spelled out? Is there some kind of check and balance process to make sure that you're following what you have documented?
Okay, so the first thing I will mention is that an executor is, so once you've appointed that person, there's something we call the testamentary freedom, in the sense that the courts will respect whatever you've stated in your will. And one of the things they usually respect is the person you've appointed as an executor. So it might be difficult for your beneficiaries to turn around and say, we don't want this person as executor anymore. It's usually very difficult to remove that person, except you can show that the person hasn't been carrying out their duty, or they've been fraudulent. And even if they commit a crime, it is so that restricted that it has to be a crime with regards to fraud, not any crime. So yes, it's kind of difficult to remove this person. So the question is, if the executor is not
If there's a check and balance process to make
so
sure.
check and balance is, at the end of the day, the person is required to provide an account. So the person will file an account, a detailed account of everything they've spent. They can also seek the services of a lawyer. That everything, like all those things, will come out from the estate. So the person will render an account. But one thing that executor is not really bound to comply with is how your body will be disposed. And this goes back to, I think I'll touch on Nigerians and immigrants generally in this situation. I know back home, the way we deal with human remains differ. Some people are very bent on their body being sent back home. The rule here is, the law says the deceased person doesn't have a right to their own body, in the sense that once you are dead, your body is not yours. So you can state wishes in your will. I want to be buried in a good casket. I want to be buried in the best cemetery in Saskatoon. If the executor looks at your asset and feels like this is not a good use of money, the person has the power to say, yes, we are not disposing this person's body as the person has stated. In fact, there was a case where the person told a friend, that a friend went out of her way, assumed, the executor said no, she assumed the body, cremated the guy as he wanted, and did everything and asked for the money back from the estate. And the court said no, that wasn't a good use of money. So that's another power that an executor has, that there's no, they could try and follow your wishes, but they are not bound to do that. For other things, they can just render an account and you see that.
Wow. Wow. Like, wow, that's a lot of learning. Like, you don't have, like, you can communicate your wishes, but the executor has the power to determine if it's a wise use of money given what's in front of them, which is why you have to be extra careful who you're giving that power, who you're putting in that position as the executor. Courage, I'm going to come back to you. So let's speak a bit about life insurance. Unfortunately, we're seeing an increasing number of immigrants who are passing away under the age of what we would typically want. All of us want old age. Everybody wants to grow old and get to 90 and 100 before you pass away. But sadly, there have been so many recurring cases of across Canada, not just Saskatoon now, where you see people passing away suddenly under the age of 50, under the age of 40. What life insurance options would you say an immigrant who moves to Canada, say at the age of 35, what exactly should I consider in determining the kind of life insurance option that I choose to go for?
Wow, that's a big question. But I'll try to answer it this way. Life insurance is something that is so critical not to have. So in the first place, we need to know what is life insurance, or why do we need it, right? I think when you know why you need it, it helps the decision. It helps the decision making. So we need life insurance to, in a simple term, is to protect, right? It's just to protect. It's just like you having insurance in your home. You have insurance in your home because If something happens to your house, you get some payments from the insurance company and you can solve whatever problems happen to your home. So the same thing, what's a life? What's a life? What does a life bring? Life can produce assets. Life produce income, right? So you want to protect these things. So you need to sit down. We do what is called if a needs analysis. So what's a needs analysis? You look at, okay, do I have young kids? So as a new immigrant, you want to look at things like, I have young kids. I have dreams and aspirations for them. I want to build a good life for them here in Canada. I need to save for them. Okay, that's one. Do I have a mortgage? A mortgage is not paid off in one day, except you are paying cash. So you're going to look at that. So I have that. That's a debt. Do I have other debts? Do I have a car loan? Do I have other things that will really cast some weight on my family, on my loved ones if I pass away? Now, when you look at these things, we begin to add them all up and say, okay, this is what you need for insurance. So you're going to look at this, you're going to look at the breakdowns, and you're going to ask yourself, do I need insurance like all the time, or do I need it for a period? Right? So these are the way we look at things. Again, are my insurance needs going to be there forever? Or are my insurance needs going to be there for a while? So these are kind of things that we do when we sit down with families. We educate them and we show this and we look at their needs analysis and we determine a number and we determine, do you need it for long or do you need it for a period? So these are the things that we look at when we are determining life insurance that families need to take. You have to do a needs analysis. If you don't do a needs analysis, then you are not doing it right. You need to do a needs analysis. You look at the income you are making because you have to replace your income. Insurance can replace your income, right? So you look at income, you look at debts that you have. You look at afterlife expenses. When somebody passes away, the lawyers can tell you here, it's not free to bury somebody. So people are not thinking about that. So just think, when I pass away, it's all good. No, there's you have to factor in that amount in your life insurance. So we look at all this and then we determine what the person would need. So I would say do a needs analysis with a licensed professional, with somebody that knows how these things work, and then we take it from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. As you were speaking now, I kind of remembered like there's a common argument that I've heard online many times, like whole life insurance versus term life insurance. Which one is more important? I have never really understood the reason why people pit those two things against each other. Like, if it is significant to your peculiar situation, then by all means go for it. So there's no blanket answer here. What kind of life insurance should you take? It is dependent on your peculiar situation. So make sure you're talking to a professional.
And
And
and,
by
and Marina, and
yeah.
Marina, sorry to cut you short. So again, people need to understand how they work. I think that's another thing. These products, they all work differently, right? So you need to sit down and understand how they work. What are the pros and the cons, right? So, but you wouldn't know this if you don't sit down and listen. And I will also say to all our insurance professionals, I know sometimes you want to make a sale like real quick, but please do a good job. Explain, because you are the professional here. Do a detailed explanation. Tell everybody how these products work, and then when the person sees the person, okay, I'm good to go with this, right? So please, the onus also rests on us as professionals to do a good job explaining, and then you can make your decision right there.
Okay, thank you very much. Like, you took that right out of my mouth. For the people who are into this, like the insurance salespeople or professionals who are trying to sign other people up, please make sure that you're giving them the full picture. Make sure you're painting the full picture. Like, if something has an advantage, chances are there's a corresponding disadvantage. So tell them the two sides so that everybody's making informed decisions and take responsibility, knowing that they considered everything before they reach those decisions. So please be clear in how you're marketing, what you're marketing. Charmaine, I'm going to come to you now. So I've now come to the point where I've overcome my fear of death, overcome my fear of talking about a will, and I have overcome that thing of, okay, the fact I'm talking about a will does not mean I'm going to die tomorrow. I now want to write a will. where do I begin? Like, do I just go straight to a lawyer, or is there any house cleaning that I have to do before I go to a lawyer that I'm ready to put my end of life wishes into writing?
Well, and as you're hearing all of us say, is that every situation is unique on its own facts. So, what is the right answer for one person may not be the right answer for another person. But
Okay.
just a few things to think about as far as possible, first steps. So, Courage, you mentioned this earlier about getting educated. So, it's so important to find out a little bit about what is at stake, not just for your will, but also for your power of attorney document, which is so crucial to have in place. And just to make a clarification on that, when we talk about a will, we're talking about when somebody has died and needing to have that roadmap in place so people know what your wishes were. But if you have been injured or you have a health condition that makes it so that you're not able to attend to your own affairs, so you're not able to pay your bills anymore, and it's not just about not being able to work, but you might not even be safe to take care of your own personal needs. And that power of attorney document is one that appoints somebody who will have authority while you're still alive to protect you and make sure that your needs are being taken care of. And your healthcare directive that can really provide some the instructions when you're not able to, as far as what your closely held values and beliefs are around your medical care. So getting educated on this topic there are many things to become educated about, educated around how to manage your finances well right now and in contemplation of the future, putting these really important documents in place. So how can you get educated? Well, there are some fantastic resources. We have an organization here in Saskatchewan. Its acronym is PLEA, which stands for Public Legal Education Association. They have online resources that you can also get in paper copies, and they have certain resources that are specific to these topics. It's an excellent starting place. And attending events like this and watching other people's informational, whether it's on a YouTube channel or other lives, you just always want to be careful, because when you are hearing information, remembering, just like Marina said, it's not a blanket, this is how it's going to work for everybody. But that's another way in which you can get additional information and really be educated. Then it's about talking with your family. And Marina, this is so wonderful that you are hosting this live, because if part of our cultural context is that, and it doesn't matter where you're from, this is an uncomfortable topic for people. And certainly for certain cultural contexts, it's maybe more than just uncomfortable, it's just something you don't do. And yet, if as a family and the people that are going to have to fulfill these roles, I saw a question about, do you have to let the executor know that you've named them as the executor? Well, Lola spoke to this earlier, is that if you haven't told them, they might not actually know how to fulfill those responsibilities. They might not want to fulfill those responsibilities. So you've put something in place with the expectation that you've got everything looked after, but then when you're not here anymore, if you've passed away and that person doesn't want to fulfill or can't fulfill those responsibilities, well, you're kind of back to square one. So finding a way in which you can share the education that you're receiving and start to have some conversations with family and loved ones about what your own wishes are, but also to find out what are the expectations and the short-term needs and the long-term goals that people have, so that you can structure these documents in that way. In Saskatchewan, it is legal to put your own handwritten instructions on a piece of paper in all your own handwriting as your will. That's what's called a holograph will. So you can just sit down with a piece of paper and you could just write down, this is my will, this is who I want to be in charge, this is what I want to have happen. Here's the problem though. When you do that without advice of a trusted professional, and in particular a lawyer, there may be consequences to what you've written on that piece of paper that you don't have an awareness of. And whether that's connected to taxation, or whether if you have minor children and what the needs you might have to be aware of, and how you structure that. So as a lawyer, I realize that it can sound self-serving to hear a lawyer say, go and talk to a lawyer. And that is why I want you to know about those public resources and the free way in which you can get information, and the fact that you could just write your will on your own. But it comes with a caution, and that caution is to say that you may not know what you don't know, and doing it on your own could then have a totally different outcome and actually create more problems than that you haven't even contemplated.
Okay. Thank you very much, Charmaine. Before I leave you, Charmaine, the acronym PLEA is public legal. I missed the E and A.
Yes.
What does that stand for?
Public Legal Education Association of Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And I think their website's plea.ca, but I'm not 100% sure. But I can also share that with you, Marina, so that you could post it.
Okay, so I'm just putting this in the chat for anybody who wants to check it out. Please check out the website. Hopefully it's plea.ca, but I've put the meaning of the acronym. So if you put that online, you probably will be able to find the correct website if plea.ca is different. So Lola, I'm going to come back to you. We can now talk about that multi-jurisdiction when it comes to estate planning. I'm from Nigeria. A lot of people who are immigrants are from other countries. Some people have properties in their home countries. Some of them sold some of the properties to come here. Some of them still have those properties back in their home countries. So when that person is writing a will and there's two jurisdictions involved, what are the things we need to pay attention to? Are there like loopholes? Are there like things that could bother? I feel like the questions are a lot in my head. I'm trying to ask all at once, but please just bear with me. Let me coordinate this properly. So when there's more than one jurisdiction involved, what do I need to know as a Nigerian woman who's now living in Canada but had a life in Nigeria before I moved here?
Okay, so the first thing is sometimes we just walk up to any lawyer, and to be fair, on most lawyers, there's something I usually call basic will, in the sense that if you don't bring something up to the attention of a lawyer, the person might not think.
Okay.
The person might not think about it. Can you hear me?
Yes, you froze.
So the
for a
person
bit.
might
So
not
go
think
ahead.
about those things. So when we talk about the multi-jurisdictional, so there's something we call the multi-jurisdictional will. So these are testamentary documents or wills that they will usually govern succession with regards to properties located in different jurisdictions, and they will usually sometimes govern maybe the whole estate or a part of the estate. So that can take care of if you're living here and you're living somewhere else. And that's where I usually say, when you bring this thing up to your lawyer, ideally the person should be coordinating with another lawyer in Nigeria, or someone that let me just say a lawyer in Nigeria, not necessarily just anybody, but there should be that, because as Charmaine said at the beginning, the law in Saskatchewan is even different from the law in Alberta. So you can't just, and many of us have properties in different places now. So you want to be sure that your lawyer is abreast of whatever is going on in another jurisdiction. So you need a multi-jurisdictional will, or you can have what we call a separate situs will. That is just a will to govern individual jurisdiction. But most of the time, we would advise that you go with a multi-jurisdictional will. Again, you need to talk to your lawyer, and the person can decide which one should be preferable in your situation. Then this takes me to if do I still have enough time to talk about?
Yeah, go ahead.
This?
Go ahead.
So
Please.
to talk about this within the context of if someone has different properties in different parts of the world, say for example, you have another property in Nigeria, and we all know that I am not here to question some of our culture or our tradition, but we know that within the Western world, or this part of the world we live in, some of those are traditions that we've taken for granted can be considered discriminatory. Right now, the law is not settled about the idea of it will be discriminatory. But if something is clearly discriminatory in the sense that there are some traditions that believe that a female child should not inherit real
Property.
property or should not or anything at all. So if that is the situation and you're telling a lawyer in Nigeria to enforce that and you have something here, then again another thing that people don't usually pay attention to is the right of your spouse. You can't will everything to say your auntie or your mommy or your children now forget your spouse. There's also something we call the spousal right, preferential right. So all those things will usually come to play, and that's where for people that have multi-jurisdictional properties, if you have it here, maybe in the Western world, sometimes they're usually similar. But if you want your tradition to be enforced or to be carried out when you're gone, then you have to pay attention to how you structure your will for your properties back at home. But sometimes you can enforce that here. For example, if you have a tenancy in common compared to a joint tenancy, those are two things that have different connotations. So many of us just sign our mortgage and we don't know the implication that if anything happens to you, even if you write it in bold letters in your will saying that everything should go to my children, it goes to the other person on the mortgage. So you have to be careful how you structure some of these things and how it has been structured back home. Go look at some of your titles and see whose name is written on it. Is it Mr. and Mrs. this and that, and not the person's full name? If that person remarries
Hmm.
tomorrow, there's also another Mrs. ABC,
Absolutely.
right? So
Wow. I never thought about that. Like when you say Mr. and Mrs., be more than one Mrs. that person. So it should be Mr. A and Mrs. B specifically. Wow. I
there's no
just
need
learned
for the
something.
Mrs. and Mr. Please,
Oh
just the
yeah, or
person,
their full names. That's what I
the
mean.
full
Like their
names.
full
Yeah.
names. Wow. So just to ask you a little about the multi-jurisdictional, does one jurisdiction supersede another, or they have like equal standing? If you understand what I mean.
Okay, so we there's something we call the domicile of a person. So for some of us that are relocated, some people don't stay here and they've claimed permanent residency and they keep renewing permanent residency, but you are also a Nigerian citizen or a citizen of wherever. Then at that point, if the court is not clear of where we can call your home state or your domicile, then we can now revert back to, and again, most of the time they would usually try to determine that this person has been living here, has been working here. But for some that have been, okay, you have a family here, you've been investing here, you've been making money in Canada, but you're also making money in Nigeria, you spend half of your time in Nigeria. Sometimes we call some of those people nomad. They don't stay in a place, they keep moving. In situations like that, then if you cannot determine domicile, then there's something we call the domicile of birth. So where were your parents living when you were given birth? So we go back to, because we all have somewhere a place of birth
Yeah.
that doesn't usually change. Then the court will usually revert back to that. So do you
Hmm.
want the law of Nigeria or wherever you were born to govern your estate? That is when we are unable to determine your domicile.
Wow. So bottom line, what I hear you say is make up your mind, stay in one place so that we can figure out where you are. So we don't have to go to your parents' village to determine if that's what we will use. Okay, so I see a number of questions coming in. I'm just gonna try to run through them and throw this to the team to quickly take them up. I'm just scrolling back to make sure I'm not missing anyone. Courage, this one's for you. Can one have life insurance in different countries? Like I already have one in the UK. So this person is watching from the UK. They have life insurance in the UK and they're relocating permanently to Canada. What is advised that I do? Should I cancel my current insurance here in the UK because they're moving to Canada? Please, can you speak on that?
Okay, good. So what I would say to that is it depends on how it works and what you want. Because if you have a insurance in UK, chances are that you are still paying premium for that insurance, right? And then you've moved to Canada. Do you the insurance you have from the UK, does it satisfy the needs for insurance here in Canada? If it does, do the company allow you to keep it while you are here in Canada? So these are things you need to find out,
Mm-hmm.
and then you now decide. So you look at cost as well. If I buy the same worth of insurance here in Canada, will it be cheaper for me to just keep the one here in Canada and then cancel the one in the UK? So you need to compare all these. You need to run the numbers and know which one is favorable for you, right? The one you had in UK before, did you just get it just so that you get something? Is it enough to cover your needs? If it's not enough, see if you can get enough here in Canada, and then you can do away with that. So we need to know all these scenarios, and then you can decide.
Okay. A couple of other questions coming in. Aroma Oluwabanke says, how long can one sign up for child insurance plans? I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. Can you clarify, please? Are you talking about RESP in Canada, or what do you mean child insurance plans? Just so that we're answering the correct question. Monica, as well, you said, how long does the child care fund last? I want to believe that you're speaking about RESP, like how long can you invest in RESP for? So, Courage, I'll give you two
Yeah.
more minutes to speak a little about that and what happens if you save for education of a child and then the child decides that they don't want to go to school. What's going to happen then?
Okay, good. For the RESP, you have a family plan and you have an individual plan. Individual plan are the ones that you register the kids separately. Each of them have their various accounts and their standalones. The family account is when you have all the kids in one plan. So if one kid say they're not going to school, the plan continues because it's a family plan. So other kids in the plan can use the money and the funds that are in there. Now, this account can be opened for as long as 35 years. So you can keep investing in this account for as long as 35 years. The grant, though, the grant that the government gives you, okay, let me just mention that. If you save in this account, the government gives you grants. For everything you put in, the government gives you 20% extra. So it's a big deal. It's something that it's monies that you can use. So the government gives you up to a maximum of about $7,200 for grants, and then for you to get the maximum grant, you should do at least 2,500 a year
Yeah,
per
okay.
child. Then you can get the maximum grants. You can do a lifetime contribution, a one-time lifetime contribution of $50,000. That's the max that you can do in that account. When your child gets to about 16, 17, thereabout, they stop getting the grants. But you can still keep investing for them in the RESP account. Because mind you, RESP, it grows. As you are investing there, it's growing. So there is capital appreciation in those accounts. So you can keep going. I have clients that are already taking money out of their RESP, but their kids are already in university. They're already adults, but they are still investing in the account. So the account can last as long as 35 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. If that's not the question you're asking, please clarify your question below and we will take that. This next question, Charmaine, I'd like you to take this one. It says, do you still need a will if it's just you and your spouse? Your spouse is already the beneficiary of all your investments, no kids, you don't want to leave anything to any other relative. Would you still need a will in that context?
So the answer is again going to be it depends. Part of if you you might believe that there are no children, and maybe there is a child that you are not aware of. Perhaps you believe that everything is set up so that there's a concept like the joint ownership where both names are on the property and whoever dies, it just rolls over to the surviving person. So you might believe that everything will just go to the person who's surviving, but there may be things you haven't thought of before. And so if you meet with a lawyer has a series of questions to be able to make sure that what is being put in place is appropriate for your needs. One thing that is something to think about, though, is what if there was a common disaster? So if you determine, yeah, for sure, there would be no children anywhere, and absolutely we have everything in joint ownership and it's going to be fine. What if something happened to both of you? And then what would you want to have happen to what you've left behind? And, this does happen. So maybe you're in a plane crash or a car accident. And again, things we don't like to think about. And we certainly don't want to bring on to ourselves, but this is part of the reality. So I think the short answer is, well, you don't think you need a will, but thinking about all of the possible ways in which a will might be helpful, you can work that through by talking with a professional and making sure that something's in place that's not over what you need, like more than what you need, but is still covering off what you might need.
Okay. The next question is for you, Fumilola, and it's a bit similar to to the first question that was asked. He said something about oh, question just scrolled. Hold on a minute. So yes, Eugene had another question about executor fees. So two-part question. Do executors get paid? Is there a fee that the person can charge for their services as an executor? And then to Eugene's question says, what would happen if the value of my estate at the time of death is less than the executor fees?
Do executors get paid? Do lawyers eat? Yes, they do. Many times they do. And a practice that people kind of imbibe is that they would usually say, I will pay this person after we've dissolved, or maybe we've maybe made some money from the estate, or you can get your money from the estate, and we found that, or I will add you as a beneficiary in my will, then you be the executor for my estate. And many times we've kind of discouraged this. Don't add someone as a beneficiary just because you want to use them as executors. But yes, they get paid, and they get paid based on the complexity of your estate, or how, yes, complexity or the volume or how big your estate is. If it's something basic, doesn't have to be that much. And that was why I said sometimes you might think of approaching corporations that are into this. That is when you have a very, very big estate. And the second question is, what if the value of your estate has dropped? Yes, that's why when we teach this in class, I usually tell my students, this is a point of lesson for you. Before you say yes to becoming an executive for an estate, be sure that the estate is worth it. Because the moment you start, you dip your hand and you start acting as executor, you can't back out at some point. You have to file a court application to say, I'm no longer interested, because there's also a case on that. The woman started off and found out that this was not worth it and she wanted to back out, and the court said, nope, you've started already. So if the person's notice, if the person finds out that this person's estate is not worth my bill, they might reject at the beginning from the get-go. And another thing is, if your estate is just less than 25,000, you don't need letters probate or letters of administration. So it's easier if you don't really have much. So it depends. Everything is based on context.
Okay, please, I have a follow-up question to that. What if this executor that I have appointed is my friend? Like both of us are friends, we have had the conversation, the person knows that they're my executor. Who determines what an executor should charge? Like the friend is not a lawyer, it's just somebody that I trust will be able to carry out my wishes. How then do they determine what they charge or what they get paid?
Okay, so if this person is a professional, they will know the rule of thumb. For lawyers,
Okay.
we have a requirement on how we can charge. So you can't just charge 1 million over a 1.1 estate, right? So there's a rule that governs how we charge, including how much, as little as printing documents, you charge for all those things. Then you prorate, you get reimbursed for things you've done and how much you charge. But if it's everyday people, you guys can negotiate. But I hope the person understands the complexity of the work they're about to take on. So it's again based on your bargaining power with the person. And if the person is that cheap, are you sure it is that's something that cheap you want to manage? Someone that cheap that we want to manage your estate when you're gone.
Okay. Um, Lola, while you're still unmuted, I'm just going to add this other question because it seems like it's something you've talked about as it relates to wills in more than one country. Can you set up a will in Canada for assets in another country? So it still seems like, you know what, let me rephrase that. It seems like we have touched on this already. Can you have two different wills? If I have property in Canada and property in a different country, can I write a will in these two countries and would the two wills be valid?
Yes, you can. And so, like I mentioned, based on the person's jurisdiction of domicile, so you can have a will, say, in Saskatchewan, but we usually prefer a multi-jurisdictional will to govern
So
all those
one will
things.
that governs
Because
everything.
if one person has a will and they conflict, then there might be a problem, which is a time for us to remind those that already had a will before leaving or before relocating, and you come here and you draft another will. Usually, we usually say the latest, that is, the latest testamentary documents will have precedence. So, if you drafted one in 2000 and you drafted one yesterday, the one you drafted yesterday will supersede whatever you drafted before. But if it is about different different properties in different jurisdictions. That is why I said it's better for your lawyer here to collaborate with whatever lawyer you want to pick in that other country
Mm-hmm.
than for you to have two separate wills, because clauses mean different things. For example, the definition of spouse is totally different in Canada. So even when you've lived someone with someone as a common law partner, and the person you leave the person, that is based on our intestate act, and you separate, the person can still have access after 24 months. So if you die within 24 months after separating for someone, a common law partner, the person can still have a right to your property. So you want to be sure that you're coordinating very well and you understand that the laws are not conflicting.
Yes. Okay. Wow. Thank you very much for that. Courage, I'm going to bring this one back to you. So, can you speak a bit about accident and death insurance? Can you get all of this in one policy? Like the question says, can you talk about accident and death insurance or life insurance? Can one get both in one policy? So, I'm thinking life insurance will kick in after the person has passed away. But is there any kind of insurance that kicks in when the person is still alive but are not able to function as in full capacity as they would have before the accident? Do
Oh
you
yeah,
understand the question?
yes, I get you.
Okay. Okay.
So that's it's very good that this question came up. Life insurances are built differently. Like there's a living benefit in life insurance. Not everyone, but like the one that I know. What's that living benefit? For instance, if someone has a terminal illness, say cancer, and the person is going to die in 3 months, in 6 months, the life insurance would actually pay out about 40% of the sum insured, up to about $250,000, so that the person can seek more help to see how they can maybe recover from whatever ailment that they have. So insurances have that. You just need to talk to the professionals and see if that is a part of the policy that they sell. There are accident and sickness insurances that you can get. Some policies are built together that you have everything together. Some you can get it separately, right? You can get accident and sickness, you can get critical illness. All those insurances are out there for you to take. But you still have to know how they work. Is it worth it? Do I have these benefits somewhere else? Do I need to start paying for them now, or don't I need them? You need to have those discussions, and then you can get them for sure.
Absolutely. And there's nothing that stops you from getting more than one insurance. It doesn't mean that everything has to be in one place. Like preferred, it might be easier to manage if it's in one place, but you can have insurance for different things. Like some people have insurance strictly for their funerals because they don't want their spouses or their children or the loved ones they leave behind to be saddled with the responsibility of paying funeral costs. So some people have gotten insurance that covers like their funeral costs, funeral plots, all the expenses as it relates to their funeral. People pay while they're alive, and this is separate from their life insurance. Some people, depending on what they're predisposed to medically in their families, are already getting insurance against certain kinds of illnesses, like critical illness in these particular areas. It can be completely different. If you don't want to manage everything as one, then you can find what are my needs. Again, it comes back to your individual circumstance. What are your needs? What is working for you? What is going to be enough, to handle what you need, and then go for those plans. Life insurance from an employer, courage.
Yes,
That's
yes, I
one
just saw
thing
that.
that this is one
Okay,
thing that this is a mistake that I've almost made, to say, okay, I'm just going to depend on this. Let's talk a bit about that. Group life
that's
insurance from
thank you for that
employers.
person that asked that question. This is a great one, and there's lots of misconception with this. People have life insurance from work, and then you will hear, this is what I hear a lot. Hey, Corey, don't tell me about insurance. I have insurance from work. In fact, my work give me is for free even. I don't even pay, I just pay very meager amount. Now, this is the way life insurance from work operates. Most times, not every time, but most times, over 90%, the insurance you get from work is mostly like 2 times your annual income. So if you go look at what you have, you will see that it's mostly like 2 times. So if you earn like $50,000, your life insurance from work will be about $100,000. So again, is that enough to cover your needs? That's what you're going to depend on. That's one aspect of it. Again, if you leave that employer, that insurance is gone most of the time. It doesn't roll over.
Does it carry?
Most
Yeah.
employer will not let you roll over your insurance. So are you going to be gambling on when people switch jobs, like people switch job every time now. It's people don't stay in one job for more than 1 year, 2 years. They are going to another place, looking for greener pastures. So, do you want to just put your life insurance hope on your employer? Something else that we don't think about. This one is very big. This one is very big about what I want to say now. Do you know that life insurance from work, group life insurance, most of them is based on you being employed? What do I mean? If you are not on payroll, maybe you are sick, you are on disability for maybe 6 months, 1 year, most of your benefits go away. And then you find out that your insurance is no more working because your employer see you as not being employed. But we don't know this, we don't see this, we don't think about this. What if this happens to me and I'm just on disability for about 6 months? If this happens, or 1 year, I no more have insurance. For that period, you don't have insurance because you're not more on the payroll of your employer. This is dangerous. So people should not just base their insurance needs on their employer. You have no control over it. Your employer control the sum insured. They don't care about your needs, but they just give you something. So is that enough to cover all your needs? You need to have yours. Again, I mentioned about the living benefits. Most group life insurance don't have living benefits where they pay you money while you are alive. They don't have that, but you get that from your private insurance. So guys, if you think you have life insurance from the employer and that's all you are banking on, please have a rethink. No. You have a rethink, please. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. This next question I will direct to you, Fumilola. It says, can an association be tasked or allowed to execute your will? For example, your association of kinsmen. This sounds very Nigerian. Your association of kinsmen here in Saskatoon. So can you, Lola, do you understand the question?
I think I do.
It sounds very Nigerian. I had kinsmen, like.
It depends on the number of people in your association of kinsmen. So if you're having, say, 100 people there, does that make sense for you to have 100 people as executors, especially when you know that the law requires them to do some things, and at the same time it comes with a corresponding duty? Are they all ready to take on the duties? Another thing is, Jermaine already mentioned it. You can have someone that will be required, that will be tasked with carrying on most of the front or the heavy load work, like signing, running around, while others just sign off or say yes or on the background. But the downside to that is many times these people have to agree. So even your kids, do they all agree all the time? So sometimes you have to be careful how you make light of this. I usually tell my students that this is not an emotional decision. You can make emotional decisions when you get to the beneficiaries and you start making all those decisions in those clauses, then you can be emotional. When it comes to executor, especially for people that you know that you want your traditional or your custom to be fulfilled, you will be surprised how much executors have the power to just strike out some things like, why do you want to be buried this way? It doesn't make any sense. This child is going to university. This child needs this money, and you want us to take this person back home. And I'm very sure some people are rolling over their dead body that God forbid me being buried in a foreign land. So yes, the law won't stop you. You can pick as many people as you want, but it does it make sense?
Yeah.
Is it expedient?
Okay. Charmaine, I'm going to come to you with my own question. So at what point, what can make a will void?
Well, so this one's a pretty tricky question to answer, in that you could put a will in place that right from the very beginning it's not a valid will, and that might be because of some of the formal requirements that haven't been met. It may be because there was undue influence. It may be because there was a lack of capacity. So right off the bat, you might have put a will in place that was actually never valid in the first place, or is void. And then there are parts to your will that might not be able to be enforced. So if you said, I want to leave $2 million to my charity of choice, but you actually die worth $100, that can't actually occur, right? Sometimes you'll put a will in place where you have left a gift to somebody who has predeceased you. So it doesn't void the will, it just means that that gift can't happen. And so then other provisions, depending on how you have your will worded, would kick in. So for example, sometimes people will say, I want to leave my estate to my spouse. If my spouse has predeceased me, I would like to have my estate shared equally amongst my 4 children. If one of my 4 children have died, I would like their share to then be gifted to their children in equal shares, as in, to my grandchildren. And so the way in which the will is worded is very important, not for the sake of whether it's going to be void and that the will itself, is not valid, but the intention that you had as you had it written, whether that can actually come to fruition or not, has to do with the way that it's written and what circumstances have occurred since. If you are married and then you are divorced, then the executor, if you haven't updated your will and you had named each other as executor, or you had left a gift, then that is something that is, the law presumes you didn't want to have happen because you have separated and divorced, and therefore those instructions may not be applicable, depending again on what you've all put in place. So one of the things that we encourage people to do is, first of all, when you're putting your will in place, and I know this is a recurring theme, talk to trusted professionals, make sure that you're putting what in place that is what you need, but is also your wants are reflected and that the law will recognize and it can be implemented. But engage in regular reviews of this, because, and there's no rules about it, but what we suggest is if you have to file your taxes every year anyhow, why not make that a time where you pull out your estate documents and you just take a look at them and say, has there been any significant changes in my life? Has somebody died that now requires an update to my estate documents? Has there been a birth that requires an update? Has there been a windfall, or has there been a tragedy? And just to make sure that your wishes are always current. It is amazing to me how many people I talk to that they put their will in place 20 years ago. And even today, I was talking to somebody who they were kind of giggling because they were like, oh, well, we had 1 child then. And now that 1 child, they actually have 2, but they're both adults now. And so provisions within the will they're not needed, but it certainly isn't reflecting the current circumstances either.
Thank you very much, Charmaine. Fumilola, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to add to that. Like, is there something else you want to add that could potentially make a will void or make a clause in a will void?
Okay, so usually what regularly came to mind is the issue of having a condition in your will, and which is because it's common in Nigeria, in the sense that this child should I give a gift of 1,000 or a million to John Doe if he graduates from school. So there's something we call condition precedent and condition subsequent. So if your condition, I can't go deep into that, but we see that a lot. But if your condition does not make, there are so many conditions that we look at that we will use to determine that should we respect your condition or shouldn't we? One of the things we consider is public policy. And again, that is changing. What we consider okay here might not be okay in our part of the world. I can't count how many times I've seen parents requiring children to have postgraduate education because it's common back home. But here, just where I'm sitting, I can think about it and say, well, why do you need a child to have a postgraduate education just to be able to access your asset or to have a part of your estate. So there are different ways we might look at public policy. Again, the courts are kind of divided on this. We've seen different case laws on this. So does it really make sense in this part of the world for you to say, if my daughter doesn't marry from my tribe, that the child does not get anything in my estate? Is it against public policy here, or is it okay wherever your other properties are? So those are some of the things that can, we say, vitiate some part of your will. Not that the courts usually lean, they usually lean towards stamping your will or giving effect to your will because they feel that this person is dead. They can't speak for themselves. But there are some clauses that they will easily just help you strike out if it doesn't really make sense or it doesn't align with public policy. Then a situation where they might void the will in entirety is when you can claim that there was fraud or the person was under undue influence, which is quite common, especially when it comes to grandchildren and grandma, and when they're alone with grandma, and you start saying all those things to grandma, and grandma starts writing. If other children find out that you did that, then that can void the will in its entirety. There's so many conditions where there's a difference when the will itself is kind of torn and it's of no effect, or where some clauses on the will are not affected. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just one quick question to add to that. When a will is written, where is it kept? I know a question like that came earlier in the conversation. Like, do I keep a copy at home or keep a copy with a lawyer? Like, where should it be kept that will be respected? Charmaine, you're more than welcome to jump into this as well.
Sure. Well, so it certainly used to be the practice that the original will would just stay with the lawyer and the lawyer would have it. And then when the person had died, the executor would go to that lawyer's office and then that lawyer would help with the application for probate. And then what started to occur is that sometimes the lawyer had already died, or maybe the lawyer had moved, and it's no longer recognized as really best practice, though I can say that some lawyers will still keep that original will in a safe on your behalf. But what we'd encourage people to do is to think about what is the best safe spot for them. So some people have safety deposit boxes, some people have fireproof safes. You can get a little fireproof safe for even $40 or $60 from Walmart, and needing to put it somewhere where the person who will need it when you pass away knows where it is and how to get into it. If you're using a safety deposit box, will they be granted access? Are they listed as somebody who has access? Little known fact, you can actually register your will with the Court of King's Bench, and at one time it was $10 to do that. I don't know if that's still what the cost is, but it's very inexpensive, and then the will is definitely somewhere safe. What's important to know is that the courts in a probate and an application for probate, they require the original will. Now, there are other things you can do if the original will has gone missing, but it's very important to keep that original will somewhere safe so that people also know where to find it.
Okay, thank you very much. You guys, can you believe it's been an hour, almost an hour, 30 minutes that we've been going on at this? Like, time flies. Time is really flying. I just want to appreciate you guys so much. Like Courage, Charmaine, Fumilola, thank you so much for taking the time to educate us today. Like, even this was a learning opportunity for me as well. There's some other questions coming in. We might not be able to take all the questions, guys. I'm so sorry. If we don't get to your question, you can send them to me as an email, and I will channel them to the appropriate person to answer the question, and they would provide the answers that you need. So I'm just going to do a quick roundtable, give everybody 2 minutes to give like your final words. Is there something that you want people to know that we haven't touched on today? Courage, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I say what I want to say, Marina, I just want to say a big thank you to you. You are impacting lives. I must tell you, I have a friend from Australia that's texting me. I'm saying,
Wow.
I've been following Marina and I'm getting lots of information. Please don't stop what you're doing. Don't stop what you're doing. It's great. You're doing something very great. So what I would say is there's what we call an F&A, a financial needs analysis. It's a big one. It's a big thing. It covers everything about your financial plan. It looks at how much you should be saving using your registered accounts, how much you should be saving for your kids. It looks at budgeting. It looks at how much you need for retirement. What you need for retirement is not an age anymore. It's an amount of money. Retirement now is an amount of money. If you have that money, you can retire tomorrow. So it looks
Mhm.
at your retirement plan, your insurance plan. I would say everybody try to get a plan, sit with an advisor and get a plan done from start to finish. You will be amazed. The plan is going to show you your net worth. I know Lola mentioned that people don't know what their net worth is. They just think because they have school loan and stuff, they don't have anything.
Mhm.
That plan is going to shed light on gray areas in your financial situation. Please get a financial plan done and know what is called your FIN number. A FIN number is a financial independence number. It's an amount of money that you need to save up to so that when you retire, you can live off that money. You need to know
Mhm.
that number. So please, guys, get a financial plan, speak with the financial planner, and you will get that sorted out. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Thank you very much. Charmaine?
I too want to express my appreciation. It was a real blessing to be connected with you, Marina, through Ebola at my office, and just to hear of the really important work that you do.
Thank
And
you.
it's so, these topics, this particular topic is a difficult topic across the board, but some of the information that's been shared here today, specific to this community and people that are moving here to Canada and to Saskatchewan, and the things that maybe you've never had to think of before, and to know that you can follow Marina and get access to really important resources and information is fantastic. And I'll just say that as far as, getting to know what your FIN number is, as Courage has spoken to, and then also be thinking about what are the needs that you want to have looked after, and how do you want those looked after if something was to happen to you. And I'll just emphasize again, if something happens to you where you're unable to make decisions for yourself, but also if something happens to you and you are no longer with us, what do you want that to look like? And just start by having some conversations with your loved ones and your
Mhm.
family, and to reach out to a lawyer who practices in this area to at least start the conversation that way as well, to say, I'm not entirely sure what I need to put in place, what that would look like, but ask the questions, seek the information, and start putting a plan in place.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Funla.
Okay, Marina, thank you again. I'm going to echo what everybody has said. Thank you so much for this opportunity. But one thing that readily came to mind, and I think it applies to you, Marina, is how we deal. Many people don't think about how they deal with their digital assets. Right now, many of us have so
Hmm.
many things stored in so many places, and I can remember when I lost all the music on my iPod, and for days I couldn't think. So sometimes you give someone your phone. Do you want the person to have access to everything on the phone? And this is because this has really come up once where someone gave out everything and gave another instruction to a friend that if anything happens to me, destroy my phone. And they said no, but the phone belongs to the wife, so what do we do with what is in the phone? Um, when you give someone your laptop, do you want the person to have access to the things on your laptop? Saskatchewan is one of the few provinces that already have a law in this area, the Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets, Digital Information Act. So we are beginning to see this is still a green area. So the common law might not have really dealt with so many areas, but you don't want to be the one that will use to learn some of the things on this area. But how do you want your digital assets to be dealt with when you're gone? Do you want someone to have access to all your online activities? Before now, Facebook, I think Instagram and all those social medias will usually destroy or close your account once they find out that the person is dead, but they usually don't do that anymore. And now we have the idea of in this time of AI, we are seeing that they are harvesting people's photos, their voice. There's something we are calling the voice cloning now, so that they can use your voice. So, do you want to be able to talk to this person when the person is gone, and that thing will speak like that person? So many things are happening in that area, and we are not seeing that reflecting in the wills. So, how do you want people to deal with your social media when you are gone? Do you want something hidden then make sure that someone else has the fiduciary duty to do that. Another thing shortly is how you deal with your residuary clause in your will. So you list all those big things that you can remember: your car, your house, your bank account. Then you get to the residuary and you say, give it to my niece or my nephew, forgetting that your residuary account right now might be 5,000, and in the next 5, 10 years maybe what's 1 million. So you have to be careful how you deal with that residuary clause. Many people don't pay attention to it because it's just a remnant, but the remnant might mean a lot because that is everything aside from things you've stated specifically. So you have to be careful with that clause, please, when you're talking to your lawyer. Some lawyers will just write whatever you've stated, but we might remember to remind you. So those are the two things that came to mind. Thank you again
Wow,
for this
wow,
opportunity.
wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lola. Thank you so much, Charmaine. Thank you so much, Courage. Like, you guys, I learned so much from this conversation as well. So it was not just a learning opportunity for you guys, it was also eye-opening for me, especially the digital part. Like, I never thought about it. Like, my YouTube channel is there. Do I want to will it to somebody? Do I want to have it short? So I have a lot of questions to answer myself. Courage, Charmaine, how can people find you? I know that both of you specifically have services that you offer to people. If people want to contact you to say, okay, they're interested in writing their wills, are they able to contact you? Where can we find you?
Well, I'm only an email or phone call away. So you can
Okay.
send me an email, cpanko, which is spelled
I'm just going to copy
CPANKO.
that. I'll copy that and put in the.
Great. Put it in the chat there. cpanko at commonsenselawyer.com. We're the Common Sense Lawyers here in Saskatchewan. And my phone number at the office is 306-975-7151. Bola answers our phones, and we'll be happy to talk to you further about what the next steps would be to get the information that you need to make good decisions about these topics.
Okay, Courage, next.
I'm based out here in Saskatoon. I have licenses in Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, and like Charmaine said as well, I'm just a phone call or an email away. I think Marina just sent you can put that in the chat for them
Your
too. My
email
email
address.
is there.
Okay.
My phone number is there. If you have anything you need, maybe some things that we didn't touch today, financial planning, insurance, you want some clarification, you want some help, just give me a shout and I'll be able to help.
Okay, guys, I'm just going to add that Courage is actually my personal financial advisor, and he makes my life easy. Because of how busy I am, I don't have the time to read everything, go through the fine print, and just be sure that I'm not signing away my whole family. But Courage makes that very easy for me, and I appreciate all your help. All the last minute meetings that we set up because Marina is never planning ahead. You guys, I'm calling myself out. But he's able to accommodate all of that and just give me the best advice. So if you're looking for somebody who will be giving you advice that puts you into consideration, Courage is definitely the plug. For Lola, I don't know if I want to put out your email publicly because Lola is a professor with the University of Saskatchewan, and I would hate for people to bombard you just given how your schedule already is. So if you have any questions specifically for her, email me and I will make the determination how to connect both. I'm just going to respect you that way. Just because you're not providing any services to the public, I want to protect you that way because I trust my community. They have questions, they will come and bombard you, and we don't want that. So if you have any questions that you want Lola to specifically speak to, please email me and I'll make the connection. But for Charmaine and for Courage, their contact information is in the chat. So you can scroll back up, the email addresses, phone numbers, they're all there. You can contact them for whatever questions you have. Okay. Well, thank
And
you very
Marina?
much, everyone. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to say one other thing. Knowing that there are people on this live from various parts of the world, just want to reiterate that, you can reach out. We can have virtual meetings and conversations, answer your questions. Don't feel like just because we're based here in Saskatchewan that we're not accessible to you.
That's amazing. Thank you very much for clarifying that. So yes, everybody, regardless of where you are, these people can be contacted virtually as well. That's why the email addresses are there. Email them and you can arrange for how the subsequent conversations will take place. Okay. Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining this conversation. It's been an eye-opener. I hope you learned something from it. If you did, please share. Let's share this video to other people so that more people can see this and more people can learn. this is home now. For those of us who have migrated here from our home countries, it's home now. And you have to start to speak the language that is understood here where you are. You have to start to make those adjustments. You cannot it's not going to adjust to you. It's you who would adjust to what's obtainable here. And having these conversations, planning for end of life, writing a will, and doing all these life insurances, that's the language that is understood here. So let's all just start to get comfortable having this conversation so that when you die and people are crying, they're going to cry because they are missing you, not just because they're thinking about the debts that they have to pay or the burden, the financial burden that you have left for them. So please begin to face these conversations head on and make better choices going forward. Thank you, everyone, for joining this live today. Thank you so much to our panelists. We're so grateful that you took out your time to come educate us. We appreciate you. And please, if we call you for follow-up conversations, we're hoping that you will honor us again and show up. Yes. Okay, I take that to be a yes. Consent. The smile was yes. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. God bless you, and I'll see you again. Bye.